Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you guys how to crochet this really cute kawaii whale. So this is part 1 on this crochet kawaii whale. In this video I'm going to show you guys how to crochet the body, and I'm going to show you guys how to crochet the tail part. And in part 2 I'm going to show you guys how to crochet the eye and how to embroider the mouth and the 2 fins on the side. So I actually designed this pattern on my own, and it uses the burnout baby blanket yarn, so it's very cute. It's like a cushion, so you can add it in your bed to make it decorative. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. I post new videos almost every single day. And don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel. And let's get right into the tutorial. The materials you're going to be needing for this project are a pair of scissors, a crochet hook. I'm going to be using a 10mm crochet hook because I'm going to be working with nice chunky burnout yarn. So I'd really recommend the yarn for this project because it's going to be great for a cushion. So I really recommend using a 10mm crochet hook for this project. You're also going to need 2 colors, color A for the main part of your whale and color B for the stomach of your whale. And I'm going to be using burnout baby blanket yarn. I'd really recommend this yarn because it's great for cushions, and this whale is going to be a cushion, so I'd really recommend this yarn for this project. You're also going to need a stitch marker, and if you don't have a stitch marker, then you could use a yarn tail. You're also going to need a yarn needle to weave in all your ends at the end. And last but not least, some stuffing to stuff your whale. So to get started, we're going to be doing a magic ring, and you want to grab your color A, which is the main color of your whale. If you don't know how to do a magic ring, then I'll link the video in the description box down below. So we're going to do a magic ring with 6 single crochets in it. Don't forget to work over that tail. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then you want to grab your tail and then cinch it so then the circle will close. And that's row 1. So row 2 is going to be an increase in every single stitch, and after that row we should have 12 stitches. But before we do that, don't forget to add your stitch marker, and if you don't have a stitch marker, then you can use a piece of yarn. So you want to insert your hook into that first stitch. It might be a bit tricky at first. I'll meet you guys back once you are able to stick your hook into that first stitch. Alright, so I finally was able to stick my hook into that first stitch, and now we want to do an increase. So that's 1, put your hook into that same stitch and do another single crochet. Now we want to repeat that all the way around, and you should have 12 stitches. Let me just do one more with you guys. So that's a single crochet, insert your hook into that same stitch, and there you go. So you want to repeat this all the way around until you arrive at your stitch marker. Alright, so I just finished doing row 3, and I just counted my stitches and I had 12. So now we can move on to row 3. But before we do, don't forget your stitch marker. So row 3 is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase, and we're going to repeat that all the way around. And then we should have 18 stitches. So we're going to do a normal single crochet into that first stitch. We're going to insert our hook into that second stitch, and we're going to be doing an increase. 1 and 2. And we just want to repeat that all the way around. So a normal single crochet, and then in the next stitch we're going to do an increase. So you just want to repeat that all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I just finished repeating that sequence all the way around, and I just counted my stitches and I have 18. So go ahead and do that, and now we're ready to move on to row 4. But before we do, go ahead and move that stitch marker. So we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then an increase in that third. So 1 and 2. Then we're going to do an increase in that third stitch. 1, and then insert your hook into that same stitch and do another single crochet. That's going to be the repeat. 2 single crochets, increase all the way around. 1, 2, increase, and then repeat that. And you should have 24 stitches if I'm right. Alright, so I just finished repeating that all the way around, and now you should have 24 stitches, and don't forget to move that marker. So moving on to row 5, we're going to be doing 3 single crochets and then an increase. So I'm going to insert a hook into that first stitch, do a normal single crochet, 1, 2, 3, So I just did 3 single crochets, and now we want to do an increase. And if you look, the other increase that you did in the other round will match up in the increase that you're going to be doing now. So that's one thing that's very easy to see. So that's an increase. Now we're going to be doing 3 single crochets and then an increase. 1, 2, and 3. And then an increase. Like so. And then you should have 30 stitches. Alright, so moving on to row 6. Row 6 is going to be 4 single crochets and then an increase on the 5th stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an increase. And that increase is going to line up with the other increases. Like so. And you want to repeat that all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so now you should have 35 stitches in total, so go ahead and count it, and then don't forget to add your stitch marker, and now we can move on to row 7. Row 7 is going to be 5 single crochets and then an increase in the 6th stitch. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an increase. So this is going to be our last increase, but of course if you want to make your wheel bigger, then you can do more increases, but I'm going to do my last increase and we're going to start doing normal single crochets for a few rows. So row 8 is going to be 6 single crochets and then an increase in the 7th stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then an increase in that 7th stitch. And you want to repeat that all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. So now you should have 48 stitches, and now we're going to start single crocheting a lot of rows. So I'm going to think about 6 or 7 rows. I'm still not sure, but go ahead and do 6 rows, and then I'll tell you guys how many rows I did of single crochet. So this is a very relaxing and simple few rows. So just sit on your chair, watch a movie, and just start single crocheting 6 or 7 rows. I'm still not sure, but I will tell you guys once I finish doing that. So a single crochet is very easy. You're just going to do 1 single crochet in every single stitch. So no more increases. And then I'll meet you guys back once you finish 6 or 7 rows. Super, super simple. So I ended up crocheting 6 rows, and now we want to work on the tail of the whale. So we actually want to undo our last stitch, and we want to do a single crochet in the front loop. So this is the front loop, and just do a normal single crochet. So now we want to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you want to skip 2 of the chains, and you want to work a double crochet in the 3rd chain. So we're going to do a double crochet. Then we want to do a half double crochet in that next chain. And in that last chain, we want to do a slip stitch. There we go. Can be a bit tricky sometimes. Now we want to go into that next stitch, and we want to do a slip stitch in the front loop. Front loop only. Can be a bit tricky to find that front loop. There we go. And just do a slip stitch. Now we want to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, not 5, just 4. And we want to work a double crochet in that second chain. So we want to skip 1 and work a double crochet in that 2nd chain. So insert a hook, go into the 2nd chain and do a double crochet. Then in the next chain we want to do a half double crochet, and in the 3rd, our last chain, we want to do a slip stitch, like so. Then we want to go into our next stitch right over here, and we want to do a slip stitch in that front loop you want to chain 1, you want to grab your scissors and cut your yarn. Like so. And there you go, you have your little cute tail. So to get rid of this tail, you just want to grab your hook and just bring it through. So then it won't bug you once you work the next row. And then in the next row, we'll just work over that tail. So now you want to grab color B, which for me, I'm going to be using white, but you can obviously use any type of color that you want. And we just want to create a slip knot, a normal and simple slip knot. Then you want to grab your wale and you want to insert your hook into this back loop. So we created this back loop by making the tail, so we worked in the front loops only. But we just want to slide that slip knot out of our hook, and we just want to insert our hook into that back loop that we created, making the tail. We just want to bring our slip knot through. And what I like to do is I like to chain 1, and then I like to single crochet in the exact same loop that I just did a chain 1 in. And I like to work over that tail. And then I just want to grab my stitch marker, and I'm just going to place it over here. And for the rest of this row, you just want to single crochet in the back loops only. So this is the back loop. Single crochet. It might be a bit tricky to find the back loop, but then eventually you're gonna spot it. So working only in the back loop, single crocheting in every single stitch. And then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I just finished single crocheting in the back loops only, and I'm just going to be doing these 2 stitches with you guys because they're a bit tricky to find the loops, so I'm just going to bring you guys closely. So if you look, there's going to be that back loop over here, so you want to insert a hook and do a normal single crochet, and in the last stitch, it should pop out over here, and do a normal single crochet. So now let's move on to the next row. Alright, so I took the stitch marker from this stitch and added it over here so it's easier for me. And now we're going to start decreasing the wale, and then we can add our stuffing later. So to get started, we're going to do 6 single crochets and then a decrease. So we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch and do a single crochet. And then let me just add my stitch marker into that first stitch. There we go. So that's 1, and now we're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 and 8 are going to be decreased together. So I'm going to show you guys 2 ways of decreasing. So the first way is the way I like to do it is just inserting my hook into the full stitch, bring my yarn through, going into the next stitch, bringing my yarn through, yarning over and pulling through those 3 loops, sorry. And the next way is, another way that you can decrease is just going in the front loops only. So we're going to insert our hook into that front loop only, bringing our yarn through, going into that next stitch, bringing our yarn through, yarning over and pulling through those 3 loops on your hook. And that's one way of doing a decrease. But I prefer doing the other way more. So you can do any type of decrease that feels more comfortable for you to do, but I just like this way more. So now we want to repeat that all the way around until you arrive in the stitch marker. So we want to do 6 single crochets, and then 7 and 8 are going to be decreased together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then 7 and 8 are decreased together. And you just want to repeat that all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I just finished repeating that sequence all the way around, and if you're like me and you didn't end with a decrease, then that's okay because it's very hard to get the right stitch count in this wheel. But that's okay, so just end with whatever stitches you have left. For me it's 2. 1 and 2. And just add your stitch marker. And now we can move on to the next row. Alright, so moving on to the next row. The next row is going to be 5 single crochets, and then 6 and 7 are going to be decreased together. So we're going to be doing 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then 6 and 7 are going to be decreased together. So that's going to line up with your other decrease. Insert a hook, pull through, insert a hook to the next one, pull through, and then pull through those 3 loops. And you just want to repeat that all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. Let me just do one more of that repeat with you guys. So single crochet 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then do a decrease. And then I'll meet you guys back until you arrive to your stitch marker. Alright, so I'm back and I repeated that sequence all the way around, and I only have one more stitch to work into. So I didn't end with a decrease, so all I gotta do is single crochet normally into that last stitch. And then add your stitch marker. So it is. And then now we can move on to the next row. Alright, so moving on to the next row is going to be 4 single crochets, and then 5 and 6 are going to be decreased together. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 5 and 6 are going to be decreased together. And you want to repeat that sequence all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back on that stitch marker. Alright, so I repeated that sequence all the way around, and now I'm just going to end with a normal single crochet. Like so. Then you want to grab your stitch marker. And then now we can move on to the next row. Alright, so the next row is going to be 3 single crochets, and then 4 and 5 are going to be decreased together. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 are decreased together. And you want to repeat that sequence all the way around. So I repeated that sequence all the way around, and I am just going to finish with 1 single crochet in that last stitch. And then add that stitch marker. Alright, so moving on to the next row. The next row is going to be 2 single crochets, and then 3 and 4 are going to be decreased together. So that's 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 are going to be decreased together. And you want to repeat that all the way around. Alright, so I finished repeating that sequence all the way around, and now we're going to start stuffing our wheel. So what I like to do is I like to add my stitch marker in the last stitch, and then I like to add it in that loop so then my stitches won't unravel. So let me go and get my stuffing, and then I'll meet you guys back. So I got my stuffing, and for this project you're going to need a lot of stuffing because this wheel is super big. And if you don't have enough stuffing, then you can use some scrap yarn, but I'll be using some stuffing. So I'm going to just put some stuffing inside, like so. And I'm going to show you guys how I like to evenly space out the stuffing. So let me just add as much as I possibly can in there. And I like to just use my 2 fingers and just put, like, you know, push them to each side of the wheel. You're obviously going to need more stuffing, but just stuff this wheel until you think that it's the right amount. And I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I just finished stuffing my wheel, and now we're going to continue closing up our wheel. Alright, so the next one is going to be 1 single crochet, and then 2 and 3 are going to be decreased together. So that's 1, and then 2 and 3 are going to be decreased together. So that's 2 and 3. Pull through those 3 loops. And we want to repeat the sequence all the way around, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so I just finished repeating the sequence all the way around, and now I'm just going to add more stuffing before we close our wheel completely. So I'm going to add as much as I can, and then I'll meet you guys back. Alright, so the next row is going to be decreasing in every single stitch. So this is super easy. We're just going to decrease in every single stitch. So once you finish decreasing in every single stitch, now we want to slip stitch and then fasten off. So we're going to go to the next stitch, and we are going to be doing a slip stitch. whoops. And then grab your scissors and then cut a long tail because we want to sew that gap closed. And then pull through. And then now you have to get your yarn needle, and we're going to sew this gap closed. Alright, so I have my yarn needle. I'm just going to weave that through. So like so. And now I'm going to weave this through the stitches like that. Like that. I'm just going to weave it like that all the way around. And that is it for this crochet really cute kawaii whale, and I hope you guys love your whale so far, and I'll see you guys in part 2 for this crochet whale.